brought them over here, Jews, and as Christians we held them, and we did some horrible things with racial segregation and the laws we made against blacks. Oh, okay, we got it. You've been doing that for a long time, white people. When will black people say, yeah, you know what, excuse me, we have a role in this as well. As long as white people do not have a partner in the dance, you can't dance. We blacks have not been good partners. And, excuse me. And Clay, I know we're running out of time here, but I want to get this in. And I want to say, I apologize to you, to my white brothers and sisters out there, excuse me, for particularly the last 45 years of our, as black people's behavior towards you, that we have not acknowledged your efforts in resolving this issue, that we have been absent from what Dr. King calls the table of brotherhood. Remember in the dream he said, I dreamed that one day the sons of former slave owners and the sons of former slaves will sit down together at the table of brotherhood and work these things out. The other day, for example, when he did this, whether you like Glenn back, agree with what he did that day in D.C. was the righteous thing to do. And if Al Sharpton and his crew didn't like what Beck was doing, all they had to do was pick up the telephone and say, hey, brother, can we sit down at the table of brotherhood and can we have a conversation? No. Instead, oh, he's a racist. He's hijacking the dream. That's the kind of stuff I'm apologizing to my white brothers and sisters for.
Well, Ted, I'm really happy and pleased to have you on my show, but the ADL who have tried to attack me and tried to demonize, they have called me a racist, and it's simply not true any more than most of the folks going to these. You were there. You were at one of these tea parties, one of these rallies. In support of the law against illegal aliens, which is affecting all of us. I mean, our jobs being outsourced overseas, that affects every family here, whether you're black or white. And I grew up working as a busboy in a restaurant, and I don't think my grandsons, or if I had any, would be able to even work in a restaurant today because they don't speak Spanish.
Right. And yet, if you speak up about that, they consider you a race. But once again, as I said at Tempe and in Arizona there, and Phoenix, that this whole issue of race that these Hispanic Latinos are throwing in our faces is really not a racial issue at all. It's just about law, because according to the federal consideration of Hispanic Latino and their own birth certificates, they are white though. They're white people. They're Caucasian. They're Caucasian. They're Spanish Caucasians, but they're Caucasians. And this is what they want to be, and it's what they chose to be. And now, that they see that they can get a benefit by claiming brown, the Bronx race, the La Raza, neo-brown race, they figure they can now inch their way into the civil rights issue, which they know puts white people back on their heels, because white people are reminded by the Hispanic Latinos, hey, you're a racist against us, you're racially profiling, remember what you did to blacks. And white people don't, right, oh, well, I can't say nothing. And consequently, white folks in this country cannot legislate and cannot effectively enforce legislation vigorously because the wound is still there. And this is why I keep saying we need to heal the wound, that we could tell these Hispanic Latinos, you want to call us racist? Far out. Knock yourselves out. And I'm not going to sit here and defend myself legislating nor enforcing the law simply because you want to call me a racist. I know who you are. In fact, you are the racist. See, from what I've heard and understood, particularly with a lot of these macho, machismo, Hispanic, Latino, Mexican dudes, they like to puff up. They like to give you that mad dog look. But when I'm finding from the brothers, when you stand up to these cats, and you don't cower, they back down. They back off.
Now, let me. You mentioned the black church was torched, and it was torched burned by illegal aliens.
Hispanic, Latino, illegal aliens burned a black church here in Los Angeles, and it's been almost 5 weeks now, and the nation has not heard. Now, Clay, had it been an Anglo white guy that burned down that church, everybody would have been here. Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, the mayor, Jews, Christians, everybody would have been out here. Muslims complaining and denouncing it as racism, and once again condemning white people as a whole. The president would have weighed in on it, but because he was a Hispanic, Latino, illegal alien in sanctuary cities, nothing has been said. And the other day we were out in the Levert Park at a jazz festival. About 3,000 black folks were out there. Beautiful, man. It was the clothes, the music, the food. It was just a wonderful experience. And we walked around giving out flyers because today we have a news conference at the burned out church about this, right? And the majority of them knew nothing. Some heard, and most of them were very upset about it. They were troubled because that means, oh no, you got to stand up and fight. Yes, brother. You're going to have to come out of your complacency. And the sooner, for example, if those 3,000 black people, which, and according to surveys, the majority of black people are against illegal immigration privately. We don't say anything publicly, but privately we're against it, right? If 3,000 black folks stood up on one day and said, we are against illegal immigration, this is not a civil rights issue, this is not your country, it's ours, get out, guess what, brothers? It would be over. It would be over. And this is why the Hispanic Latino leadership fear me so much, because they know that if black folks hear my voice and recognize that someone's standing up, they will stand with me, and the whole issue is over. They know that.
You know, I've had the Christian identity tell me, well, you're just afraid to be a racist. I said, you know what? I'm not afraid of nothing in the world. I ride a Harley at 90 miles an hour. You know, I've gone up against the whole New World Order. You know, I've exposed the government drug dealing and the victimization and the enslavement of the American people. I'm not afraid of nothing. And but this divide and conquer is what the press is doing. It's what the banksters want. And I think that you and I ought to be standing side by side and saying, we don't have any differences that we have are minor and inconsequential. What we're talking about is the liberty and freedom of our children, of our grandchildren, of our fellow men, and it doesn't matter what color you are.
Right, exactly right. I'm with you 100%. You know, and I think a lot of the Aryan brothers out there, and the so-called white supremacists, most of them really don't believe that doctrine at all. I think that is a doctrine of pain. It's a doctrine of fear. And when you have someone constantly accusing you of something like that, you will castle up, and it's necessary to get on the offense. You take, for example, I hope to take a tour this winter if this thing goes well through the South. My Heal America campaign headquarters located in Charleston, West Virginia. And one of the things I've been talking about is understanding who poor white folks are, particularly through the Appalachians, through the South. That post-Civil War, the white folks of the South were given a bad reputation, and they were the evil ones. And now, while the plantation owners were cruel and wrong, those young white guys who fought in that war really got a bad deal. Prior to the war, young white boys could not get jobs. Many of them could not get employment for their families, living in poverty. Why? Because when they're walking down the road, they look out the field, look who's working. Okay? When they look at the roofs being put on the houses, look who's working. It's not them. So there's naturally a resentment, just like when we see an illegal alien working a job that our son or ourselves should be working. We naturally want to resent those folks. Then when the plantation owners get into the big war with the North, guess who goes to fight for the plantation owner in the name of states' rights, fighting for their rights? Those poor white boys went out there barefooted and fought, for their countries. And then at the end of the war, these poor white boys come home with nothing, disabled physically and mentally. Guess who's got all the job positions again? The black folks. They put in the whole so-called Reconstruction era. So, and then of course, here comes that guy, Wilberforce, whatever his name was, the general that started the Ku Klux Klan there in Tennessee.
Oh, you're talking about Albert Pike?
On the anger.
Albert Pike.
I forget his name right now, but he played on the pain and the fears of those young boys out there and create the Ku Klux Klan. Of course, now that's